Thank you for being here once again, family. I'm grateful, as always, and it's good to see you. In this lesson, we're going to continue talking about self-discipline, continuing where we left off. If I believe that I am remembering right, we were talking about things that can destroy having a positive mind, an immeasurable amount of things out there that you could allow get into your consciousness and destroy you. And then those negative influences near you, including people who are negative, the people that you work with closest, the people that you live with, maybe even some of your own relatives that are negative. And if you don't watch, you will be just like they are, because you will respond in kind. It may be necessary for you to live in the same house as someone who's negative, but it's not necessary for you to be negative just because you're in a house with someone who is. I'll admit I'm going through that personally myself, and I can be the first in line to stand up to admit that it'll be a little bit difficult for you to immunize yourself against that kind of an influence. But you can do it. Believe me, I have done it. You can do it. People in history, it's in the history books. People like Mahatma Gandhi, he can do it. And if you look at him, you just think to yourself, look at the things that he had to immunize himself against that he didn't want. And other negative traits, continuing on. Perhaps some inborn negative traits that you brought over with you from birth. Now these can be transmuted into positive traits as much as anything as soon as you ferret them out and find out what they are. I am convinced that there are a lot of people in this world who are born with naturally inborn negative traits. You take a person who's born in an environment of poverty. For all of his relatives are poverty-stricken. All of his neighbors are poverty-stricken. This boy saw nothing but poverty, felt nothing but poverty, hear nothing but poverty talk. And that was, coincidentally, the condition I was born in. So I know you can be born with that trait. Even as an adult, it was one of the most difficult traits that I had to whip was this inborn fear, poverty. And also worry over lack of money or lack of progress in your business or your calling in life. You can put in most of your time with worrying over the thing, unnecessary time spent. Or you can transmute that state of mind over into working out ways and means of trying to overcome those worries. Think about the positive side instead of the negative. Worrying over the negative is not going to do anything but get you in the deeper and deeper and deeper. That's all it's going to do. And then unbalanced love, unrequited love situations in handling your emotions as it relates to the opposite sex. You don't have to let these unrequited love affairs destroy your balance of mind. So many people do. It's up to you to do something about it, to maintain a positive mental attitude. And also the most important is to recognize that your first duty is to yourself. Get control of yourself and never allow anybody, emotionally or otherwise, to upset your equilibrium. The Creator didn't intend that should be done, and you shouldn't let it be done. And then also behind that, unsound health, either real or imaginary. You can worry an awful lot about that if you're not careful. Worrying about the things that might happen to you, but never do. If it weren't for that in the materia medica back in the day, and I'm sure now still, that is called hypochondria. Well, you can put in an awful lot of time becoming negative over that. If you don't sit down and build up a positive mental attitude towards your health, if you don't develop and build up a health consciousness, think in terms of health, and your mental attitude always will have a tremendous amount to do with whatever happens to your physical body. There's no doubt about that. You can try that out on any time you please. When you think you're not feeling so well, then let some good good piece of news come along and how quickly you snap out of it. Haven't you had that experience? You wasn't feeling good one day and you was down and out. And somebody came along with some random piece of good news that you've been waiting to hear about. And your mind just flipped like a light switch from off to on, active. You weren't feeling so badly at all. But what this good news did away with the negative feeling that you had. And then intolerance, a lack of an open mind on all subjects. How much trouble does that give most people in maintaining a, negative mental attitude? Then greed for more material possessions than you need. I've already made, comment on that in other videos. So if you want to go back and listen over it, please be my guest. I'm talking now in this video about some of the things that one has to pay the price for to conquer in his or her life in order to maintain a positive mental attitude. Ignorance to the real extent of the power of your mind and its unlimited potential in obtaining anything that you desire. And then lack of a definite major purpose, and also lack of a definite philosophy by which to live and guide your life. A lot of people have no philosophy in life to live by. Did you know that? In this world today, a lot of people don't even care for philosophy. It's an afterthought in the wind. They live by hook or crook, by chance, by circumstance. And they're just like a dry leaf on the bosom of the wind, because they have no philosophy to live by. Trust in the luck and to misfortune. And generally, misfortune is the one that rules. You have to have a philosophy that you can live by. In this world today, and throughout history, it is proven fact that there are many fine philosophies that you can die by. But we're much more interested in the ones that you can live by. It's a philosophy that you can live by in such a way that the neighbors around you look upon you as something desirable. They feel happy to have you there. You feel happy to be there. You will not only enjoy prosperity and peace of mind doing this, but you will reflect that in every person that you come into contact with you, no matter who it is. And that's the way that people should live. That's the kind of mental attitude people should have to live by. And then last but not least, the habit of allowing others to do your thinking for you. If you're going to do that, you'll never have a positive mental attitude because you won't have your own mind. When I first jumped on the bandwagon with this philosophy, it was during a time where I was at my lowest. I couldn't see left or right. I didn't know what was up or down. But if I'm being honest, I tell you I needed some kind of direction. Someone to point the way, change my thinking first, then allow everything else to fall as they may, cross that bridge when I get to it. And then I heard this what sounded to me like poetry while being entranced, listening to my mentor when it comes to this philosophy. It was called a challenge to life. And this challenge to life that I'm about to speak of, it's basically my mentor's reaction to one of the worst defeats that he had suffered during his entire career, paralleling it to my situation during the time I needed to hear this philosophy. It was during the same time that I was going through my own phase of what felt like rock bottom. And I bring it to your attention because he used it as his way of mitigating the defeat, so I did the same. It was the same how we go about transmuting an unpleasant situation into something useful. Now, when the circumstances happened to my mentor, it was so funny because the way he put it was, he had real reason to go out and fight. And I don't mean fight mentally or orally. I mean fight physically. If he had gone out back and settled the business behind pine trees, it would have been justified under the circumstances. And I'm sure if we think back in our life, it may have not been that serious, but in the moment, it probably felt like that. We've all had that kind of an experience or something that was comparable. But anyway, instead of settling this business like that, he elected to do something that would damage no one and that would benefit himself. he elected to express himself in this essay called A Challenge to Life. Life, you can't subdue me because I refuse to take your discipline too serious. When you try to hurt me, I laugh, and the laughter knows no pain. You know, I appreciate your joys wherever I find them. Your sorrows neither discourage nor frighten me, because there is laughter in my soul. A temporary defeat does not make me sad. I simply set music to the words of defeat and write it in a song. Your tears are not for me. I like laughter much better. And because I like it, I use it as a substitute for grief, for sorrow, for pain and disappointment. Life, you are a fickle trickster. Don't deny it. You have slipped this emotion of love into my heart so that you may use it as a thorn with which to prick my soul. But I have learned to dodge your trap with laughter. You tried to lure me with the desire for gold, but I have fooled you by following the trail which leads to knowledge instead. You induce me to build beautiful friendships and then convert my friends into enemies, just so that you may harden my heart. But I sidestep your fickleness by laughing off your attempt and selecting new friends in my own way. You cause men to cheat me at trade so that I will become distrustful. But I win again because I possess one precious asset that no man can steal. It's the power to think my own thoughts and to be myself. You threaten me with death, but to me, death is nothing more than a long, peaceful sleep. And sleep is the sweetest of human experiences, except in laughter. You build a fire of hope in my heart, then sprinkle water on the flames. But I rekindle that fire, and I laugh at you once more. Life, you are licked as far as I'm concerned, because you have nothing with which to lure me away from laughter. And you are powerless to scare me into submission. To a life of laughter, I raise my cup of cheers. You know, hearing that, you may think it's easy to kind of, have that emotional reaction or experience where you could, fake brush aside those people who have damaged you or injured you, any kind of unpleasant circumstance. Like, you may think it's easy to have that kind of reaction when you've been injured and hurt by those who should have been loyal to you. This business of striking back at someone who has injured you or tried to have injured you is just a lack of self-discipline. You really haven't really become acquainted with your own powers or ways and means by way you can benefit by those powers. Because you have stooped to the low level of trying to strike back at that person who slandered you, vilified you, or treated you in a way that was just OD, or cheated you, in one way or another, or even tried any of those things. If you ever come to that type of situation again in life after hearing this, don't do it. Retaliating, don't ever do it, because you will only lower yourself in the estimation of yourself and of your creator. There's a better way, a better weapon that I'm trying to put in your hands with which you can defend yourself against all who would try to injure you. And if you just take my word for it and use the self-discipline that we have in this recording tonight, and never to allow anybody in this world again to drag you down to their level. You set the level on with which you want to deal with people. And if they want to come up to your level, all right, bet. But if they don't, let them stay down on theirs. Let them go ahead and fall down on their own. There's no sin in that. Set your own high level and stand your ground, come what may. I have a better way, hell, of defending myself. I have a mind, and I know what to do with that mind. And I am never without defense. Now that I've got that out of my system, let's get on down back, to the lesson. With that essay, my mentor and how popular that philosophy is, this philosophy that I love. That essay has already influenced millions of people And with me as an example, it at the time that it was released, it had influenced millions of people who weren't even yet born. It's not the brilliance of the essay. It's just the thought back of it. Don't you know? You're supposed to react to these unpleasant circumstances in life in such a way that life can't conquer you, that nobody can conquer you. When you have laughter, especially in your soul. I want to tell you, when I think about it, you're sitting very closely on the plane on which the Creator acts himself. When you got laughter in your soul, laughter on the face. And I want to tell you, you'll never be without friends. You'll never be without opportunities. And you will never be without a means of defending yourself against people who don't know anything about laughter. I pause for silence, just so that you can remember what we had just talked about when it comes to laughter. Now, auto-suggestion, that is basically a suggestion to self through which, the dominating thoughts and ideas become conveyed to the subconscious mind, is the medium by which self-discipline becomes a habit. Now, the starting point in the development of self-discipline is definiteness of purpose. You will notice in time, if you've listened to enough lessons, you will notice that in every one of these lessons come whatever lesson that may come up. You can never get away from that term, definiteness of purpose. It stands out like a sore thumb, and you can't get away from it solely because it is the starting point of all achievement, of everything that you do, whether it's good or bad. It starts with definiteness of purpose. Now, the reason for repetition of an idea, what do you think the reason for repetition of an idea is? Anyway, let's talk about it. Why should you, write down on paper your definite major purpose, for instance, and then go over it day in and day out to get it into the subconscious mind? The subconscious mind gets into the habit of believing that which it hears often. And you can tell it a lie over and over again. And you will get to the point where you don't know whether it's a lie or not. And the subconscious doesn't either. I know of people who has done just that thing. Now, obsessional desire is the dynamo that gives life and action to definiteness of purpose. An obsessional desire is a desire that, how do we make a desire obsessional in the first place? Let's get into that. By living with it, of course. Call it into your mind and seeing yourself with the physical manifestation. Seeing the actual thing, even if you don't have it, out there somewhere in the circumstances of your life. But whatever your desire is, I wouldn't take the chance at guessing. Everyone's different. Whatever it is, be careful what you set your heart upon through obsessional desire, because the subconscious mind goes into working on ways and means of translating that desire into its material equivalent. Self-discipline cannot be attained overnight. It must be developed step by step through the formation of definite habits of thought and physical action. You must go through the motions of actually doing something about it. Now, real quick, before we move on, the reason I'm kind of pressing that you be careful about what it is you set your heart upon is this. If you set your heart upon anything, you really put it in your heart that this is the thing that you want, and you stand by that decision, you're going to get it. And be sure that if you start your obsessional desire about anything, is that whatever that something is that you're desiring, whatever it is, be sure that once you attain whatever it is that you're desiring over, it'll be something that you'll be willing to live with after you get it, him or her. I can imagine a lot of people who just heard that is in laughter right now. People who are married, who know exactly what I'm talking about. What a marvelous thing it is to demonstrate in your own mind something that you desire to get above all else in this world, this thing that you want, something that's hard to get maybe. Demonstrating that desire to get it in your own mind. And then once you come to know after you get it, after you've demonstrated that type of an obsessional desire, you come to decide that you want to live with it. 'It. The rest of your life. That's a marvelous thing, honestly. But be careful Be careful of what you're demonstrating before you start demonstrating. Moving on and getting ready to close out. This last thought that I will leave us off with. Your power of thought is the only thing that you as a human has complete, unchallengeable control. A fact so astounding that it connotes a close relationship between the mind of man and infinite intelligence, controlled by the power of will. And in giving human beings control over but one thing, the Creator must have chosen the most important of all things. And this is a stupendous fact that merits your most profound consideration. If you give it this sort of consideration, you will discover for yourself the rich promises available to those who become mastery over their own mind power through self-discipline. Family, this might be a short one, but if anything, thank you for being here today. In closing, I was thinking about it when I was on the road delivering packages the other day. I said, this is how I'm going to close it out. In the words of my favorite band, when life gets hard, keep on marching on. Even if the finish line is far, or you have to push the car, keep on marching on. Until next time.
Even if the finish line is far, or you have to push the car, keep on marching on.